Most people believe they know what they want, yet what they pursue is often only an echo of voices that are not their own. This distinction stood at the center of Tesla's private inquiry long before it appeared in his work or his words. His investigations into manifestation did not begin with ambition, but with doubt. He observed that desire, as commonly expressed, was unstable, restless, and reactive, shifting with praise, fear, or comparison. From this observation arose a deeper question, whether wanting itself was misunderstood. Tesla did not treat desire as a virtue simply because it was intense. He treated it as a signal that required decoding. What he sought to understand was not how to obtain more, but how to determine whether a desire was genuine or merely inherited, imitated, or imposed by the surrounding world. This distinction would later become foundational to how he understood manifestation itself. Tesla's authority in this matter did not arise from success, acclaim, or external validation, but from an unusual discipline of inner correction. He subjected his own motivations to the same scrutiny he applied to physical systems. When an impulse arose, he did not act upon it immediately. He observed it over time, watching whether it strengthened or dissolved in silence. Many ambitions vanished under this examination, revealing themselves as reactions to expectation rather than expressions of inner coherence. He noticed that desires borrowed from society carried urgency and anxiety, while those aligned with something deeper carried steadiness and calm. This process was not dramatic, nor was it moralistic. It was diagnostic. Tesla approached desire as an engineer approaches a circuit, searching for inconsistencies, interruptions, and false signals that prevent energy from flowing cleanly toward a result. Through years of such observation, Tesla recognized that most people confuse wanting with knowing. Wanting is loud, impatient, and often defensive. Knowing is quiet, precise, and resistant to disturbance. The former arises from comparison, fear of lack, or the desire to be seen. The latter arises from an internal recognition that does not require justification. He saw that people often chase outcomes that promise relief from discomfort, rather than fulfillment of purpose. These pursuits may produce motion, but they do not produce alignment. Tesla understood that manifestation could not occur where intention itself was fragmented. A system that does not know its own direction cannot arrive, no matter how much effort is applied. This realization marked the beginning of his separation between superficial desire and true intention. In observing others, Tesla noticed a recurring pattern. When individuals spoke of what they wanted, their language shifted depending on who was listening. Their desires changed in the presence of authority, admiration, or threat. This instability revealed that the desire was not rooted in the individual, but in the environment. Such desires demanded constant reinforcement and produced exhaustion rather than clarity. Tesla recognized that manifestation was impossible under these conditions, not because the universe was unresponsive, but because the signal being transmitted was incoherent. A fluctuating frequency cannot produce a stable outcome. This was not a mystical claim, but a structural one. Inconsistent intention yields inconsistent results, just as unstable current yields unreliable output in any system governed by law. Tesla also observed this confusion within his own early ambitions. Certain goals, though attractive in theory, lost all momentum when stripped of external recognition. Others persisted regardless of isolation, fatigue, or delay. This contrast taught him that genuine desire does not negotiate for attention. It remains present even when ignored. False desire, by contrast, demands constant stimulation to survive. This distinction was not discovered through affirmation or visualization, but through subtraction. Tesla removed noise, expectation, and imitation until only what could not be removed remained. What endured under these conditions revealed itself as real. This endurance, rather than intensity, became the first indicator of true desire. As his understanding deepened, Tesla began to see that most failures attributed to fate or limitation were in truth failures of discernment. People pursued what excited them momentarily, mistaking emotional charge for alignment. They followed urgency instead of coherence. Tesla recognized that urgency is often the voice of fear, while clarity has no need to rush. A desire that must be acted upon immediately is rarely stable. A desire that can wait, observe, and remain unchanged is far more likely to be genuine. This principle became central to his understanding of why manifestation appears elusive to many. It is not withheld, it is misdirected. The error lies not in the method, but in the intention being transmitted. Tesla did not conclude that desire should be suppressed or diminished. Rather, he concluded that desire must be clarified before it can be effective. Without this clarification, effort becomes wasted motion. Energy is expended without direction, and repetition only amplifies confusion. He saw that people often attempt to manifest outcomes in order to discover what they want, rather than discovering what they want before acting. This inversion guarantees frustration. Manifestation, in Tesla's understanding, responds to clarity, not longing. It reflects coherence, not desperation. Until desire is known rather than assumed, no technique can compensate for the contradiction embedded within the signal. This realization altered how Tesla viewed both success and failure. Outcomes no longer served as proof of worth, but as feedback regarding alignment. When results failed to appear, the question was not whether effort was sufficient, but whether intention was authentic. This removed emotional volatility from the process. Desire became something to be studied, not indulged. By treating intention as a variable, rather than an identity, Tesla freed himself from attachment to outcomes while increasing precision in action. The pursuit of manifestation transformed from a struggle into an inquiry. What remains when applause, fear, and imitation are removed reveals what can truly be manifested. From this foundation, Tesla understood that manifestation does not begin with attraction, visualization, or effort, but with discrimination. The ability to distinguish between borrowed desire and genuine intention determines whether energy moves coherently or dissipates. This discrimination requires patience, solitude, and an unwillingness to confuse motion with progress. Only when wanting gives way to knowing does intention stabilize. Only then does manifestation become possible, not as a forceful act, but as a natural consequence of alignment between inner signal and external law. False desire creates motion without direct. Tesla observed that when desire is not genuine, effort multiplies without producing coherence. This failure does not occur suddenly. It unfolds gradually through contradiction. A person declares an intention, yet behaves in ways that undermine it. Words and actions diverge, emotion fluctuates, focus weakens. Tesla recognized that this pattern was not a lack of discipline, but evidence that the desire itself was unstable. A system cannot sustain output when its inputs cancel one another. In such cases, manifestation does not fail as a punishment or mystery. It fails as a consequence of conflicting signals transmitted simultaneously. The universe responds precisely to what is expressed, not to what is claimed. He noticed that false desire often carries emotional volatility. Excitement surges briefly, followed by doubt, frustration, or exhaustion. This instability reveals that the desire is powered by external reinforcement rather than internal coherence. When approval fades or resistance appears, motivation collapses. Tesla understood that a desire dependent on constant stimulation cannot maintain frequency. It oscillates, it fragments, it produces noise rather than signal. Such noise cannot be translated into form. This is why many experience cycles of hope and disappointment without resolution. The desire itself is not aligned, so no technique can stabilize the outcome it seeks to produce. Tesla also identified contradiction as the primary disruptor of manifestation. When a person desires an outcome while simultaneously fearing its consequences, the system locks. Energy moves in opposing directions. One part seeks advancement, another seeks protection. This internal conflict is often invisible to the individual, but unmistakable in its effects. Progress stalls. Opportunities appear briefly and vanish. Effort increases, yet results diminish. Tesla did not interpret this as bad luck. He interpreted it as interference. Just as overlapping waves can cancel one another, contradictory intentions neutralize force. The universe reflects the composite signal, not the conscious preference alone. Emotional instability further amplifies this interference. Desire rooted in fear of loss or comparison generates urgency. Urgency distorts perception. Decisions become reactive rather than precise. Tesla observed that urgency often masquerades as passion, yet it lacks endurance. It burns quickly and leaves residue. Genuine intention, by contrast, does not require emotional intensity to persist. It remains present even when conditions are unfavorable. False desire must be fueled repeatedly, while true desire sustains itself. This difference explains why some pursuits feel draining while others feel inevitable, even when effort is required in both cases. Tesla also recognized that false desire often seeks validation through outcome. Success becomes proof of worth, and failure becomes threat. This attachment further destabilizes intention. When identity becomes entangled with result, perception narrows, fear increases, adaptation becomes difficult. Manifestation requires responsiveness, not rigidity. A system overly invested in a specific outcome loses sensitivity to feedback. Tesla understood that such attachment creates blindness. The individual stops adjusting signal quality and instead demands compliance from reality. Reality does not respond to demands. It responds to coherence. Another cause of failure lay in imitation. Tesla saw that many desires originate not from inner necessity, but from observation of others. People adopt goals because they appear rewarded, admired, or socially sanctioned. These desires feel convincing at first, yet lack depth. When pursued, they generate resistance rather than momentum. The individual struggles against an invisible current. Tesla recognized this resistance as misalignment between borrowed ambition and internal structure. A desire that does not arise from the individual cannot be sustained by the individual. Its frequency is foreign. Its signal degrades over distance. This misalignment produces emotional fatigue. The person must continually persuade themselves to continue. Discipline becomes forced rather than natural. Tesla understood that genuine desire simplifies action. False desire complicates it. When intention is authentic, action aligns without negotiation. When intention is borrowed, every step requires justification. Manifestation cannot emerge from constant self-persuasion. It requires internal agreement. Without this agreement, effort becomes friction, and friction generates heat without movement. The system expends energy, yet remains stationary. Tesla concluded that manifestation fails not because the universe withholds response, but because the signal transmitted lacks integrity. Integrity, in this context, does not refer to morality, but to wholeness. A whole signal carries no internal contradiction. A fragmented signal dissipates. This principle applies universally, regardless of method or belief. Techniques applied to false desire amplify confusion rather than clarity. They increase volume without correcting distortion. Only when desire is purified of contradiction does manifestation become possible. Until then, effort will continue to outpace result. From this understanding, Tesla saw that the work of manifestation begins not with attraction, but with removal. False desire must be recognized and released before genuine intention can emerge. Without this clearing, repetition strengthens instability rather than alignment. The universe responds faithfully to what is expressed. When expression is divided, response appears absent. This absence is not silence, it is accurate reflection. Clarity precedes creation. Without clarity, manifestation cannot occur, regardless of persistence or belief. Contradiction in intention neutralizes all manifestation. Tesla's understanding of true desire shifted when he ceased measuring intention by intensity and began measuring it by stability. What endured without reinforcement revealed a different quality altogether. Genuine desire did not surge or collapse, It did not require persuasion, nor did it demand emotional charge to remain present. It existed as a steady internal condition, unaffected by delay, difficulty, or silence. Tesla recognized this steadiness as coherence. In physical systems, coherence allows energy to accumulate and direct itself. In human systems, it produces the same effect. A stable desire maintains its form across time. It does not argue with circumstance. It adapts without losing direction. This quality marked the difference between intention that dissipates and intention that manifests. He observed that true desire expresses itself as a consistent frequency rather than a forceful impulse. Intensity can fluctuate without consequence when frequency remains unchanged. A desire that weakens under fatigue or opposition was never fundamental. A desire that persists calmly through uncertainty carries structure. Tesla understood frequency not as emotion but as pattern. What repeats without distortion establishes a signal. This signal does not need amplification. It requires preservation. Most people mistake emotional heat for alignment, yet heat often introduces noise. Frequency, by contrast, organizes. It creates predictability. A system tuned to a stable frequency draws corresponding conditions naturally, not through exertion but through resonance. Tesla's experiments taught him that systems respond most reliably when inputs remain consistent over time. Sudden surges destabilize circuits. Smooth continuous current produces function. He applied this observation inwardly. When intention shifted daily, manifestation remained erratic. When intention remained unchanged despite circumstance, reality reorganized gradually but decisively. This reorganization was not dramatic. It unfolded through small confirmations that accumulated without friction. Tesla recognized that manifestation operates through continuity, not surprise. The universe does not respond to enthusiasm. It responds to order. Order emerges from stable frequency. True desire also carried emotional neutrality. It did not plead, justify, or defend itself. It required no audience. Tesla noted that genuine intention often feels quiet, almost unremarkable. It lacks urgency because it does not fear absence. It does not rush because it does not doubt its own validity. This neutrality confused those who equated passion with commitment. Yet Tesla saw that neutrality preserves signal integrity. Emotional extremes introduced distortion. Calm intention maintained clarity. This calmness did not imply weakness. It implied alignment. A stable frequency does not fluctuate in response to external interference. Tesla further understood that true desire does not compete with other desires. It displaces them. When genuine intention is present, alternatives lose relevance. This narrowing of focus does not feel like sacrifice. It feels like simplification. Energy that was previously scattered consolidates. Action becomes more efficient. Decision-making accelerates without pressure. Tesla recognized this consolidation as a hallmark of coherence. A system aligned to a single frequency reduces internal friction. Manifestation becomes a matter of time rather than effort. The outcome is not forced, it is assembled. In contrast, false desire required constant reaffirmation. It competed with doubt, distraction, and comparison. Its frequency shifted based on external input. Tesla saw that such desires could not stabilize because they lacked internal agreement. True desire generated agreement across thought, emotion, and action without negotiation. This agreement produced a unified signal. The universe responded to this unity not because it favored the individual, but because unified signals are easier to translate into form. Fragmented signals degrade. Unified signals propagate. Tesla also observed that true desire remains precise. It does not inflate or expand beyond its function. It knows what it seeks and ignores what it does not. This precision reduces waste. Many confuse expansiveness with power, yet expansion without definition disperses energy. True desire defines boundaries. It selects conditions compatible with its frequency. Tesla understood that manifestation is selective by nature. Only what matches the signal can be received. Precision increases match quality. Vagueness produces weak correlation. The universe cannot respond accurately to undefined intention. Over time, Tesla concluded that manifestation does not require stronger desire, but steadier desire. Intensity fades, frequency remains. The work lies in maintaining coherence across time, not generating emotion in moments of excitement. When desire stabilizes, action aligns spontaneously. Opportunities appear without pursuit. Resistance diminishes without confrontation. The system begins to move as a whole. This movement feels inevitable rather than effortful. Tesla recognized inevitability as the signature of true alignment. When frequency is stable, manifestation follows as consequence, not reward. Stability of frequency determines power of manifestation. Tesla discovered that true intention could not be identified in noise. Silence was not a retreat from reality, but an instrument for measurement. In the presence of constant stimulus, desire multiplied without distinction. Every impulse appeared urgent. Every thought demanded response. Tesla recognized that such conditions made discernment impossible. Just as delicate instruments require isolation to register subtle signals, the mind requires quiet to detect genuine intention. Silence removed interference. It did not create desire, but revealed what remained when distraction was withdrawn. What survived in silence carried coherence. What vanished revealed itself as imitation or reaction. Solitude became essential to this process, not as isolation from humanity, but as separation from influence. Tesla observed that proximity to others introduced foreign frequencies. Expectations, admiration, criticism, and comparison altered internal rhythm. Even well-intentioned voices distorted signal clarity. In solitude, these distortions dissolved. Desire either stabilized or disappeared entirely. This outcome was not emotional, it was structural. A desire dependent on reinforcement collapsed when reinforcement was removed. A desire arising from internal necessity remained unchanged. Tesla understood that solitude functioned as a filter. It separated intrinsic intention from external imprint. Silence also exposed contradiction. In quiet, conflicting impulses could no longer hide behind activity. When desire was divided, the division became obvious. One intention sought movement, another sought safety. One sought expansion, another sought approval. Tesla recognized that such conflicts were often invisible in busy environments, where motion masked inconsistency. Silence halted motion. With motion halted, internal disagreements surfaced. This exposure was uncomfortable but necessary. Manifestation could not proceed until contradiction was resolved. Silence revealed whether agreement existed within the system. Tesla did not use silence as escape or indulgence. He approached it with discipline. Silence was scheduled, protected, and maintained with rigor. During these periods, no effort was made to generate insight. Observation replaced pursuit. Thoughts were allowed to arise and dissipate without interference. Over time, patterns emerged. Certain intentions returned repeatedly without emotional charge. Others appeared briefly and dissolved. Tesla trusted this recurrence more than enthusiasm. What returned uninvited demonstrated persistence. What required prompting revealed dependency. Silence sorted desire through repetition rather than force. In solitude, Tesla noticed that genuine intention did not speak loudly. It did not persuade or argue. It remained present with minimal sensation. This understated quality distinguished it from impulse. Impulse demanded action. Intention required recognition. Tesla learned to distinguish urgency from necessity by their behavior in silence. Urgency intensified in quiet, seeking distraction. Necessity remained unchanged. This distinction refined his understanding of manifestation. Only what remained stable without stimulation could be trusted as real. Silence eliminated exaggeration. It returned desire to scale. Solitude also reduced emotional distortion. Without audience, identity loosened. Without reaction, self-image softened. Tesla saw that many desires existed to preserve identity rather than fulfill purpose. These desires collapsed when identity lost relevance. In solitude, there was no one to impress, contradict, or surpass. Desire either justified itself internally or disappeared. This process was not judgment, it was calibration. The removal of social feedback allowed intention to align with internal structure rather than external reward. Through extended periods of isolation, Tesla refined his capacity to hear subtle internal signals. Sensitivity increased. Minor fluctuations in intention became noticeable. He observed that clarity increased not through effort, but through subtraction. Removing noise revealed structure. Removing stimulation revealed frequency. Silence did not provide answers. It removed false questions. What remained required no explanation. Tesla recognized this clarity as essential for manifestation. Without it, action would always be compromised by unseen interference. Tesla concluded that solitude was not optional for those seeking alignment. It was the environment in which true intention could be verified. Silence did not produce desire. It tested it. Only desires capable of existing without reinforcement could generate coherent frequency. Only coherent frequency could organize reality without resistance. Manifestation required listening before acting. Silence taught listening. Solitude preserved signal integrity. Without these conditions, intention remained contaminated, and manifestation remained unreliable. Silence reveals what desire can endure without reinforcement. Tesla understood that imagination was neither indulgence nor retreat, but a testing ground where intention could be examined without consequence. Many used imagination to flee from limitation, constructing scenes that soothed discomfort rather than revealed truth. Tesla rejected this use entirely. To him, imagination served a structural function. It allowed a desire to be placed under conditions that exposed its coherence or weakness. When imagined circumstances intensified contradiction, the desire revealed itself as false. When imagined circumstances stabilized intention without emotional excess, the desire demonstrated integrity. Imagination did not create alignment. It revealed whether alignment already existed. He treated imagination as an instrument, not a refuge. Images were not summoned to feel better, but to observe reaction. Tesla would hold an imagined outcome with precision and neutrality, watching whether the internal system responded with calm recognition or agitation. If agitation appeared, the desire was not ready or not real. Genuine intention did not produce excitement or fear when visualized. It produced familiarity. It felt correct without justification. Tesla understood that imagination amplified what already existed. If the signal was unstable, imagination magnified instability. If the signal was coherent, imagination confirmed it quietly. Tesla noticed that fantasy differed from disciplined imagery in a critical way. Fantasy expanded without limit and demanded belief. Disciplined imagery remained bounded and required none. Fantasy inflated identity and fed expectation. Disciplined imagery reduced identity and sharpened clarity. In fantasy, the mind chased pleasure. In disciplined imagery, the mind observed alignment. Tesla rejected any image that produced craving or urgency. These reactions indicated attachment, not intention. Imagination was not meant to intensify desire. It was meant to expose whether desire could remain stable when confronted with its own fulfillment. He also observed that imagination revealed resistance more efficiently than action. When an outcome was imagined clearly, unacknowledged fears surfaced immediately. Concerns about responsibility, exposure, or loss appeared without delay. Tesla welcomed these responses. They were not obstacles but information. A desire that triggered persistent resistance when imagined was incomplete. Either the desire was borrowed, or the individual was not aligned with its implications. Imagination uncovered these mismatches before energy was wasted externally. It functioned as a diagnostic stage, saving effort by refining intention. Tesla maintained strict control over imagery. Scenes were simple, precise, and devoid of drama. Excess detail distorted signal clarity. The purpose was not immersion but verification. He observed whether the imagined state felt natural or imposed. Natural imagery required no emotional reinforcement. It did not need repetition to remain present. Imposed imagery demanded effort and deteriorated quickly. Tesla trusted the former. The latter was discarded. This process refined intention through elimination rather than affirmation. He recognized that imagination, when used improperly, could reinforce illusion. Repeated visualization of an outcome that contradicted internal structure strengthened division rather than alignment. This misuse explained why many experienced fatigue and disappointment after prolonged visualization practices. Tesla understood that imagination does not override reality. It mirrors internal condition. When condition is fragmented, imagery amplifies fragmentation. When condition is coherent, imagery confirms direction. Imagination cannot substitute for clarity, it can only reveal its absence. Tesla also noted that disciplined imagination reduced emotional volatility. By observing rather than indulging imagery, attachment weakened. The outcome became informational rather than personal. This neutrality preserved signal integrity. Manifestation did not require emotional investment in images. It required compatibility between image and internal frequency. When compatibility existed, the image felt unnecessary. The desire moved forward through action without persuasion. Imagination had completed its function. Over time, Tesla concluded that imagination was not a creative force in itself. It was a filter that separated genuine intention from fantasy. What could be imagined without distortion, urgency, or resistance possessed structural compatibility with reality. What required embellishment, emotional charge, or belief was not ready or not real. This understanding protected him from illusion and preserved efficiency. Manifestation followed clarity, not visualization. Imagination served clarity by exposing misalignment before effort was applied. Disciplined imagination filters true intention from fantasy. Tesla recognized that attachment to outcome was the final distortion that prevented manifestation from completing its course. Even when desire was clarified, stabilized, and tested, fixation could still corrupt signal integrity. Obsession reintroduced urgency. Urgency reintroduced fear. Fear fractured frequency. Tesla observed that when identity became entangled with result, intention lost neutrality. The desire no longer existed as a coherent signal, but as a demand for validation. This demand altered behavior subtly but decisively, introducing strain where ease had previously existed. Manifestation does not tolerate strain. It responds to alignment, not insistence. He noticed that attachment transformed intention into expectation. Expectation narrowed perception. The individual began scanning reality for confirmation or denial, interpreting events emotionally rather than structurally. This vigilance depleted sensitivity. Feedback was misread. Adjustment slowed. Tesla understood that manifestation requires responsiveness, not surveillance. When outcome is watched anxiously, perception contracts. The system becomes rigid. Rigid systems resist flow. Detachment restored flexibility. Without emotional investment in timing or form, intention could adapt to conditions without losing direction. Tesla also saw that identity attachment produced contradiction. When outcome became proof of self, fear of failure intensified. This fear expressed itself as hesitation, overcorrection, or premature action. Each response distorted frequency. Tesla recognized that genuine intention did not require identity reinforcement. It existed independent of self-concept. When identity was removed from the equation, action simplified. Decisions aligned naturally with intention, rather than image. Manifestation advanced quietly without self-conscious interference. He applied detachment, not as indifference, but as precision. Detachment preserved signal purity by eliminating emotional noise. It did not weaken commitment, it clarified it. Tesla observed that the most effective actions emerged when outcome was treated as informational rather than personal. Success indicated alignment, delay indicated adjustment, neither altered internal state. This neutrality maintained coherence over time. Manifestation proceeded steadily because frequency remained unchanged regardless of feedback. Tesla further understood that detachment required separation from narrative. Stories about deserving, timing, or destiny introduced interpretation where none was needed. Interpretation consumed energy. Tesla chose observation instead. Events were read as data points, not judgments. This approach preserved continuity. Emotional neutrality allowed correction without discouragement. Desire remained stable because it was not required to justify itself through result. Identity no longer negotiated with reality. Reality responded without resistance. He also noticed that detachment dissolved impatience. When outcome was no longer needed to complete identity, waiting lost emotional charge. Time became neutral. This neutrality aligned with the nature of manifestation itself, which unfolds according to compatibility rather than urgency. Tesla understood that impatience is a form of disbelief. It implies doubt in coherence. Detachment restored trust in structure. When intention is correct, timing becomes secondary. The system organizes itself without supervision. Through disciplined detachment, Tesla preserved energy. Emotional investment in outcome consumed force that could otherwise sustain alignment. By releasing fixation, that energy remained available for action. Action became lighter, more accurate, and less forced. Manifestation accelerated, not because effort increased, but because interference decreased. Tesla recognized that the universe does not respond faster to pressure. It responds more accurately to clarity. Tesla concluded that detachment was not abandonment of desire, but liberation of it. Desire freed from identity, and outcome regained its natural frequency. This frequency did not need monitoring. It did not seek reassurance. It functioned autonomously. Manifestation followed as confirmation rather than conquest. When outcome arrived, it did not surprise. It completed a process already resolved internally. Detachment allowed manifestation to finish its work without obstruction. Detachment preserves frequency by removing emotional interference. Tesla observed that when desire was genuine, clarified, and detached, action no longer required force. Movement arose without negotiation. There was no internal debate, no need for motivation, no reliance on willpower. Action occurred as a direct extension of alignment. He recognized this effortlessness as diagnostic. When effort felt heavy, desire was still conflicted. When action felt natural, desire had stabilized. Manifestation did not wait for action to begin. Action emerged because manifestation was already underway internally. The body and mind responded to coherence automatically, just as a tuned instrument responds to vibration. He noticed that genuine desire selected its own actions. Choices appeared obvious rather than calculated. Paths revealed themselves without search. Tesla understood that this clarity did not eliminate difficulty, but it eliminated confusion. Work remained demanding, yet resistance vanished. There was no question of whether to act, only how precisely. Action confirmed alignment rather than created it. When intention was correct, the next step required no justification. The system moved forward because it could not remain still. This inevitability distinguished true desire from ambition driven by pressure or comparison. Tesla also recognized that effortlessness did not imply passivity. Action still occurred in the physical world, often with great intensity and discipline. The difference lay in internal friction. False desire demanded constant self-command. True desire required none. Energy flowed toward action without leakage. Fatigue diminished, focus sharpened. Tesla saw that when desire was genuine, the body cooperated. Sleep, concentration, and endurance aligned naturally with intention. Manifestation accelerated because the entire system moved in agreement. He observed that action born of genuine desire was adaptive rather than rigid. When conditions changed, movement adjusted without emotional disturbance. There was no attachment to method, only to direction. Tesla understood that manifestation requires flexibility. A coherent signal adapts to medium without losing frequency. Action that clung to form rather than function signaled insecurity. True desire trusted structure. It allowed method to change while direction remained constant. This adaptability preserved momentum even in uncertainty. Tesla also noted that action confirmed desire more reliably than thought. Thought could rationalize contradiction. Action could not. When behavior aligned effortlessly over time, intention was verified. When behavior stalled or fragmented, misalignment remained. Tesla treated action as feedback, not proof of virtue. He did not moralize effort. He observed it. Manifestation revealed itself through sustained, unforced movement toward a result. Action became the language through which intention communicated with reality. He recognized that genuine desire reduced the need for discipline as control. Discipline transformed into maintenance rather than enforcement. Habits aligned without struggle. Distraction lost appeal. Tesla understood that discipline imposed upon false desire produced burnout. Discipline aligned with true desire produced efficiency. The difference lay in agreement. When intention and action agreed, discipline was no longer experienced as restraint, but as continuity. Manifestation thrived in this continuity. Tesla also saw that effortlessness increased accuracy. When action was unforced, attention remained wide. Opportunities were perceived early. Errors were corrected quickly. There was no emotional cost to adjustment. This responsiveness preserved alignment. Manifestation did not require flawless execution. It required consistent correction. Effortless action allowed correction without self-judgment. The system refined itself naturally. Tesla concluded that action does not initiate manifestation. It confirms it. When desire is genuine, action becomes inevitable. When action feels inevitable, manifestation is already decided. Reality reorganizes around coherent movement without resistance. What appears as effortlessness is not ease, but agreement between intention, behavior, and law. This agreement signals completion of internal preparation. Manifestation follows as confirmation of alignment, not as reward for effort. Action flows naturally from genuine desire without resistance. Tesla arrived at the final understanding when he saw that manifestation was not an act of creation, but a recognition of what had already been resolved internally. The outcome did not appear because desire was projected outward, but because contradiction had been removed inward. What people called manifestation was, in his view, confirmation. Reality reflected the state of coherence already achieved. When intention stabilized, noise cleared, attachment dissolved, and action aligned, the external result emerged without surprise. It arrived as an echo rather than an event. Tesla understood that nothing new had been summoned. What appeared had been inevitable, once internal agreement was complete. He observed that many misunderstand manifestation as the power to impose will upon circumstances. This misunderstanding led to strain and disappointment. True manifestation did not bend reality. It revealed reality's responsiveness to order. When the internal system reached coherence, the external system reorganized to match it. This reorganization followed law, not favor. Tesla saw that reality behaves like any structured system. It resolves imbalance by restoring symmetry. Manifestation was symmetry made visible. When the signal stabilized, the response appeared. The universe did not decide. It complied automatically. Tesla also recognized that manifestation concluded without emotional climax. There was no moment of triumph or relief. The result felt familiar, as though it had already occurred. This familiarity confirmed that the process had been completed internally long before appearance. Surprise belonged only to those who expected struggle. Tesla understood that surprise indicated disconnection. When intention was truly aligned, outcome felt natural. The The system simply returned what had been stabilized within it. Manifestation did not add meaning. It confirmed meaning that had already been established. He noticed that once manifestation occurred, desire itself often dissolved. The need to hold intention disappeared. Energy moved elsewhere without loss. This dissolution demonstrated that manifestation was not the goal, but a phase. Desire served as a guide toward alignment, not as a permanent condition. When alignment was achieved, desire completed its function. Tesla understood that clinging to desire after fulfillment reintroduced distortion. Manifestation required release, not possession. Completion restored neutrality. Tesla further saw that attempts to repeat manifestation through force failed. Each outcome required its own alignment. Methods could not replace discernment. The same steps applied without clarity produced nothing. Manifestation responded to state, not ritual. Tesla concluded that techniques were secondary. Primary was the condition of coherence. When coherence existed, technique became irrelevant. When coherence was absent, technique amplified confusion. This realization protected him from dependency on process. Understanding replaced repetition. He recognized that manifestation could not be used to escape responsibility. Outcomes revealed alignment, not virtue. Manifestation did not absolve error. It exposed it. When results were undesirable, the cause lay within contradiction rather than punishment. Tesla understood that this removed moral drama from the process. Manifestation was not reward or consequence in ethical terms. It was correspondence. The external world mirrored internal organization faithfully. This fidelity made manifestation dependable and impartial. Tesla also understood that manifestation did not require belief. Belief often substituted for clarity when clarity was absent. True alignment functioned regardless of belief. It did not require affirmation or hope. It required agreement. When agreement was present, belief became unnecessary. Tesla trusted structure over conviction. Structure produced results quietly. Conviction without structure produced noise. Manifestation followed structure every time. In this final realization, Tesla understood that manifestation could not be accelerated through desire. Desire had already done its work once clarity was achieved. From that point, patience replaced effort. Time became irrelevant. The outcome would appear when conditions allowed, not when demanded. This patience was not passive. It was stable. Tesla recognized that stability was the final signal of completion. When nothing more needed to be adjusted internally, manifestation had already occurred in essence. Tesla concluded that manifestation was not the creation of a future, but the unveiling of a present already aligned. What appeared in the world was not summoned, but permitted. The universe did not grant, it reflected. When intention became whole, reality answered without resistance. Manifestation confirmed coherence. It did not produce it. This understanding sealed the process. There was nothing left to pursue, only order to maintain. Manifestation confirms alignment rather than creates desire.